What is up, everybody? Dan Tom here, host of the Protect Your Neck podcast, analyst who you can find. Yeah, that's right, analyst. It's not just gambling, but we'll briefly touch on that in the beginning. There's actually a lot of analyst stuff to talk about, which is why I always have another analyst on this show, not just for the normal one, but if you guys notice, and just for a long trend now, I've mainly had analysts on as analysts to analyze mixed martial arts, whether we're talking about upcoming action that just happened in this case, or as one of the few people, which Feno, like, even my fellow analysts and my brothers even forget, because, like, I get so, as the passive aggressiveness you can tell, I get so, like, labeled, even by, like, people who don't give a shit about gambling and aren't a part of these troll crowds. The worst part, it almost hurts more when those people are like, oh, you do history work? You covered this? Oh, you have a top 5 list? Like, yeah, I'm one of the only people that actually, like, cares about top 5 lists in any fucking writing genre online, A, and one of the only people who consistently, B, does that in our space, which makes me consistently, Feno, one of the only people who consistently even covers history in our space, does it not?
Pretty much, yeah.
Right?
Especially nowadays with all the people like making the stupid threads on Twitter. Like,
Yep.
no disrespect, like, you can be a new fan, nothing wrong with being a new fan, but you cannot label like, oh, top 10 knockouts in UFC history and it's all Apex. Like,
Yeah, well, yeah. You don't have to be like. It's not like a gatekeeping hipster. Like, you can actually be like, even people who you would consider smart hipsters, listeners. Like, shout out to my guy Dan Albert, who I just had on the show, who is actually good at making these lists. He's, and Dan won't mind me peeling behind the scenes. Like, he's totally admitted of his blind spots. He's like, yo, there are certain years once we get like pre-2009 MMA, I've got some blind spots. Can you give me some recommendations? And what does Dan do? He actually goes and does the fucking work. He does the research, and he's not even paid to do so. Unlike the slop that is put up from the other few people that even do what I do. But it's just
I like taking it back to Dan Albert. Like, he knows his boxing
He's the
history,
man.
and obviously
Oh.
he wasn't there. He's only like
Yeah,
27.
yeah,
So, like, you can go back. Nothing is stopping you.
yeah.
Especially if you have like ESPN or Fight Pass. Like, all the fights, at least the UFC ones, are fucking there for you to watch. So
Absolutely. So yeah, so no gatekeeping here. Just do the work, and thankfully people we're coming strong with the positives. But I apologize for being late, folks. I was just like telling Feno, man, I want to get to the smoking and joking here, and there's actually like good stuff to talk about, which we're gonna get to that I think from like all perspectives from this card. But I do want to get this gambling stuff out of the way, as I was like literally trying to machete it out of the way, like cutting through here, dude. Like. I don't know. I don't even want to give him like credit or whatever. Like, I see like a lot of like analysts, and I'm not too surprised. I was telling Feno to see like MMA gambling Twitter follow certain people and have a less of a standards. But analysts, I judge a lot more harder. And it's just one dude. I don't even know what he posts, but I just remember like a lot of us have him muted, whether he realizes or not, some Martian guy or whatever. And he's like so hard up on, again, dude. Like, that's the thing. Like, I suck. Yes, you don't have to like me. Fine, I'm annoying. Sure, I'll give you like all those. That's all fine, right? But like, at least come with the facts. That's my thing. And people are coming at me, Feno, like I'm a dude who sells picks. And that Martian guy is like referencing some shit. It's like, I told Dan Tom MMA that I warned him. Like he's some soothsayer. Like dude, like I feel bad for calling like the exact method and round and shit. Like, oh, I probably sound like a self-confirming douchebag that's like blowing up my own asshole, right? But there are motherfuckers out here, Feno, that are following the sport, not even for the sport. They're following it like a fucking reality show, just for the gossip. And they're holding on to shit, like bookmarking shit that doesn't even have to do with you or me. And they're holding on to it, like saying like, this dude who used to work at the same who used to do the co-main event stuff at Action Network, Feno, before me. I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, Manpreet. I don't know him, but apparently he was another guy who sells picks and stuff. And he seemed like a cool guy to me. I had nothing bad to say. But
okay.
but again, this is what the annoying part is I get treated like these people who sell picks, because a lot of them scam. And any of us who's been in this fucking online Twitter betting space knows, like, dude, it's just like a laundry list of scammers. Like, people don't last long, right? Even like people who aren't like scamming, or even people who are good or have nothing to do with betting, just podcast. You see it in this space. MMA chews up everybody. A. But B, in the betting space, it's particularly scammy, which is why, to the credit, when I like talk to some of these people, They get so hard up, and they came so hard up at me because they've seen it so many times before. They see you, they assume you're just another one of those scammers, right? And I don't even know the details to this day, dude. Apparently the dude did some contest, Feno, on his own. Didn't pay people out, paid people out late after it got blown out, like, for like, you know, we're talking about like thousands of dollars here. Like, I don't know if it was like up to 40 grand or some shit. Like, ridiculous stuff. Like, not the, you know, after a decade of hard work and good character and still not selling pics, mind you, asking for, you know, not even asking for, but giving people who want to support me, who've been asking to support me, the option to support me a couple dollars, I guess constitute is the same. But this actually happened before even the Substack shit, right, Feno? Which is even crazier.
Yeah.
Right? And these motherfuckers
I like the content of the Substack is not even like betting oriented, so it's like so weird to say that, like.
And I make most of the shit for free, more than I even advertise that, which was already advertised to be majority free, by the way, right? But yeah, man, like it's pretty crazy. Like, so I guess because, you know, and so everybody came at everybody working at the Action Network, or at least they came at me and Clint, because me and Clint are the most like vocal guys. And you know, I've stood up for Clint before or whatever, you know, like, you know, I mean, you never really know people or whatever, but I consider Clint a friend or whatever, and Clint's never, there's no proof that I know that Clint's ever scammed anybody, but people were coming at him too, right? And I made the mistake of like trying to defend a friend, Feno, and these fuckers all came at me, right? And that's when, you know, I really got like a lot of these trolls like last year around May. It really started like kicking up. This is the inciting incident. And apparently people are still, if anybody should be hanging on to it, it should be me, because I'm the one that fucking felt the effects and had nothing to do with it, right? But these motherfuckers, for whatever reason, these, you know, men's Oprah Winfrey fan motherfuckers trying to find some reality talk show bullshit, they're like, see, look at Dan's, they get mad at for me not accounting for my record. Then I go like spend the whole day saying I had bad bets, and they're all pissed off. And now they're having posts saying, this is why Dan's betting record's so bad. I tried to warn him back a year and a half ago when he tried to defend a friend who had nothing to do with something that he had nothing to do with, that has nothing to do with his betting record, and I fucking called it, right? Like, it's the classic bullshit. It's like, it's the same thing. That's why they get, you know, and it's usually by accident, because they're too dumb to actually like get shit right and not realize how much luck goes into picking, much less betting this madness, right? But it's that same attitude of like, some fluky shit will happen. They'll be like, I told you Gomes was the fucking man. He had the athletic advantage, you know, and all this bullshit, right? Like, it's the same shit. And I'm just like, guys, like, dude, I've never been lower. There's you even just do the cheap little screenshot dunk that people like just jerk off to, like, where's Dan's? They do the same joke every time, like, is this you, bro? And it never gets old. It never gets old. I never get it on a week-to-week basis. But Feno, as much as I'm joking about that, like, dude, do that. Like, there's so much low-hanging fruit. Like, look at me. Look at my betting record. Look how bad I am. Like, there's so many things you can make fun of legitimately. And, like, people are, like, going to Alex Jones conspiracy land from shit from a year and a half ago that has nothing to do with me, nor my betting, of all things. And it's fucking hilarious, you know? So, I don't know, dude. I don't know, you know. But yeah. On that note, folks, thank you guys. Sorry if I, you know. If you listen to my last show, you guys know I come through. I might start off a little rough because, again, the universe loves to test me, you know, because they're just like, oh, nah, this guy. You know, again, holding it together for nearly a decade, almost nearly 500 episodes of a podcast. Feno, two things you only need one hand to count on and have remainders. The amount of podcasts in this space that have hit 500 episodes or more, and the amount of, again, I'm a bad better. Clearly, folks, I make bad bets, bad picks. I never have, but I'm definitely not denying it now, right? But it's also undeniable that you only need one hand. Again, this open challenge still goes. Name any questionable decision, stoppage, or whatever going back to 2021, and the challenge is open, guys. Hit it up in the chat. Hit me at Dan Tom MMA. Say, Dan Tom, where were you at for this decision? Where were you at for this stoppage? Where were you at for this one? This doctor stoppage or whatever, or this or that. And I shouldn't say that because I profited off one. Granted, it was arguably a just one. We're going to get to that with Benoit Saint Denis and Renato Moicano at the main event. But yes, I only need one hand to count those, Feno. And I still have fingers left over. And on those fingers, like for example, I was on Gamrot on one of his many losses into a victory on the Fiziev injury, right? Like, well, I was on the right side of that. Like, yeah, but I still lost that night if you actually go back and check the record. So like, okay, I was on that fight. I guess I profited from that, even though all my money was actually for it to go later into the rounds to make more, and I still lost. But okay, like, yeah, those are the ones. Like, I didn't even win from any of those, by the way. So that's an undeniable fact as well. Like, and that's what sucks. It's like, because I already do suck, so I'm not like denying that. But it's like, dude, like, and we'll talk about it. I don't think it's a robbery. Like, I believe you don't think too. We'll talk about Brito and Gomes, right?
Yeah, we'll
But
get into that.
but at the same time, right? Like, where's the controversy of the night and where was I, right? So this game is like pretty consistent, right, Fenyo? As an outsider who doesn't bet and just you'll tell me like it is. By the way, tell me straight. Interrupt my
Yeah.
ass, please.
Uh,
But I'm gonna tweet actually. But let's get into Brendan Allen and not Brendan Allen, Moicano
no,
and
the
Benoit
main
Saint
event.
Denis.
Yeah.
Yeah. The stoppage, I guess. So I was also getting a shit from dude. Again, a lot of these people follow me too, so it's like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, why are you following me if you hate me so much? And homeboy was like, because I got confused, because again, I don't watch, and it's like, how am I supposed to know that? It's like, I get that, but I actually tweeted that I wasn't watching, and plus I tweeted my normal not watching Wolverine gif that I actually went to the trouble to explain the gif. So I kind of explained myself twice that I wasn't watching. Probably including to the post that the person replied upon, but apparently because I got confused, and God forbid I assumed that I didn't win money, which is crazy, right? To assume that like
Yeah.
I didn't cash, like whoa, a gun to the head. You're really gonna assume that, Dan? Like I know, why would I have gone that route? Me of all people, right? But like someone was giving me shit, Fenyo, because I thought it was gonna be stopped in round 3. Because A, I've been on that side before, so that's where my brain was going. But B, if you actually break it down, like we were talking about off mic, and I tried to explain to this person as shortly as I could, and it's probably good that I was vague because it'll see, since they wanted to be the smart ass reply, fucking, hi Kyle. It's like, would you fucking meet a Herbert? I don't know, but with your smart ass, you probably should have. Hit that unfollow button, motherfucker. Dan, you're really wishing child molestation on your listeners? Possibly! But that aside, I'm trying to make Fenio spit take because he's sipping, but it didn't work, thankfully, because he doesn't have as dark as humor as me. But, but yeah, like, it's like, well, the thing is there's different times to call the doctor in, right? And usually, in my defense, I am actually pretty aware of this because I critique a bunch of bullshit because I complain. That's another, again, one of the many things you guys can actually like legitly complain about me. Like there's plenty of them. And one of them is that I complain about just random shit, right? And one of the things I'll critique or complain about, because complain is the word, right? You know, it's not vulnerable, it's weakness. It's not critique, it's complain, it's cry, right? That's the vocabulary these days, right, Fenyo? We can't use vulnerable, we can't use critique, right? We can't use fair. It's either you're crying, right?
No, yeah. Cope.
Coping,
bro.
you're coping. Like we can't even have we can't even have this recap show, by the way. Like because it's a post fight cope show. No matter what, even if by definition, forget my results, even right. Like by the definition of how the alpha bro acts today, right? The post fight cope. But yeah, like motherfuckers, like I usually pay attention to it because I get pissed off because as somebody who's actually. Which I don't even, believe it or not, I actually don't mention every episode, but for what it's worth, somebody who's actually both done the role of the fighting and the cornering before, much less actually, and I'm not even trying to be like the dude, like, oh, I went to the rules, did you go to the rules? Even though I was being a dick to that person who deserved it, by the way, I didn't even pull that fucking card, right? Like, I've actually done this shit, and these motherfuckers are going to bark in my replies, of all people, right? Like, again, you don't have to like me, motherfuckers, but I am somebody who knows what the fuck I'm talking about, and has actual experience of literally almost every job you can fucking think of, and the only ones I haven't are ones that you guys wouldn't even care about anyways, and I know I would kill whether it's ring announcing or commentating if given the chance. You get this voice healthy and allow it to work, baby. But yeah, when it comes to actual stuff like referee courses, judging courses, actually fighting in multiple fucking sports, 3 fucking decades of my life dedicated to this shit. Throwing punches and kicks, having them thrown at me before half these motherfuckers were even born in my fucking replies. Yeah, like I critique that because I get mad when they call the doctor in between rounds. Not because I'm like, let them bleed, bro, just bleed. No, I get mad because the corner needs all that time to work. You get the doctor in there, and the doctor can observe, but I don't even like them observing because oftentimes they get in the way, and they almost want to like justify their presence. and they'll even get in the way of the cut man. Forget the corners and their direction. They only get 45 seconds to work. That's really fucking important. I know you guys are probably just grabbing your fucking Cheetos and beers and shit, you know, and that you guys don't think of this, and you just come back to see tweets and dunk on people, because that's all you fuckers care about. But yeah, there's a protocol in there, right? But some refs are smart and they don't let the doctor in, or if they let him in, they make sure they let the doctor observe. Like, you'll see Jason Herzog be like, no, let the corner work. He'll actually like check the doctor, right? Which is smart, and again, the ref's supposed to, because they are the sole arbiter in there, right? We saw that because you saw actually the doctor being pressured from the crowd to go, yeah, he can't see, but he can't see out of one eye, so maybe you could still let it go on. He started being wishy-washy, and Mark Goddard, being a good ref that he made the decision, because it's Mark Goddard's decision, not the doctor's. Mark Goddard controls the referee controls everything in there. So that's why I critique that. And it has an impact on the fight, not just if it ends or not, which is obviously the ref's call as the sole arbiter, right? But when the fight ends, back to this little fucking nitpick complaint, you know, fucko number 77 of today in my replies, had to come at me with, which I'd be curious to see what they respond, but I just muted him because I just don't give a fuck anymore. It's just going to distract me because I'm a completist and I have to respond to shit. But yeah, it also dictates on when the round's going to be stopped. So for example, what I'm guessing here is the reason why it's went this way before, and I assume this is because oftentimes, and this is what you're supposed to do, by the way, to what I just said, to stay congruent to that, is that you're supposed to wait to call the doctor after, right? You let the round in, you call time, and then you let the doctor in. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what helps the fighter stay in the fight, right? That's what helps the fight stay going, right? You're not that.
I mean, if the referee is like worried enough, right, it's obviously in his power, like Goddard did here, to call in the doctor like in between rounds.
Yes.
But yeah, but it's like a little bit of a code that you give the whole minute, especially in these cases where the swelling maybe goes down with the cold compress and that kind of shit. But yeah, it wasn't the case.
Right. Or real quick though, or they can call. You're right, Feno. But here's where again it gets wishy-washy, because you can call the ref or the doctor in right in between rounds, but it all depends on whether or not you officially let the round go on after that to stop and call time at the beginning of the round, or which is what in this case they did. They didn't even let it get to that. They used that kind of nether region between the corner being over and the round officially starting. There's a weird nether region.
The minute between the rounds, and Goddard call it like with the clock running, right?
Right.
But we've seen before that if the horn of the next round, the third round in this case, sounds, and then they call the doctor, that it's something that we've seen in the past, right?
Yeah.
Then you get the stoppage as 0 seconds of the third in this case. And as you were saying, like the TKO doctor stoppage, a bit of a misnomer, because a doctor stoppage is when the referee decides to stop the fight under the recommendation of the doctor. It's not the doctor stopping the fight. And usually there are like interesting rules, because I think in the current unified rules, corners are not supposed to throw in the towel, but referees still allow it. That's something that kind of weird that goes on, and I don't agree with that part of the ruling. So if someone like throws the towel, the actual result should be like a disqualification, but they never do that. And you know, like MMA corners, they never throw the towel, so it doesn't matter anymore at the end of the day.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that as well too. But yeah, that is a misnomer, correct? And you know, a lot of people don't know that. And if you're asking why are Dan and Feno splitting hairs so much, I mean, I appreciate them explaining it, and I'm sure many of us either didn't know or needed the review of it, which is totally fine, by the way. But why are they splitting hairs on such an obscure rule? Because according to, again, Kyle Fuckboy 77 in my reply, number 77 in my reply, not only giving me shit, but is saying like, apparently you don't understand anything or MMA betting as a whole, because I was confused on that one ruling.
And especially if you weren't even watching, right?
and I was, and even if I was, like, they might not have given us those details, right, in the broadcast. Like we don't, where the cameras are going. Like you don't catch everything as far as those things go, and you don't find out until it gets ruled or announced, right? Whether it's referees discussing things off camera, right, or so on and so forth in those kind of nether periods. So yeah, no, just crazy. And yeah, I really wasn't watching. I was just like I didn't. Like I texted my guy Aaron Bronstetter a message. I'm like, yo, how close was I getting around two? I didn't even see it, and I didn't see Aaron's response until I saw like a Capoza tweet saying, "Oh, it looks like Moicano took that off." And as somebody who had like fight finishes in round two, I was sweating I was clenching my butt cheeks in round one, like survive, survive. I'm like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, like survive. The meme, right? So going into round two, I'm like, yes, but like again, why I assume it's bad because. Back to the whole old adage, right, Feno? The analysis is spot on, but the picks and the play doesn't. It just comes just short, which we'll talk about here, right? But usually my round threes and round twos, it's classic where I'm like, oh, you check all the boxes. You got the gassy fighter who's gassing, and the other guy who's doing good. Like you have everything you want. Like he's hurt, and then for whatever reason, those end up being the worst because then you don't get the finish. A fighter takes the round off, or something stupid happens. And hearing that Moicano took the round off, I was like, fuck, of course. So I was already like leaning to like I lost the fucking... Not that it mattered because I still lost anyways. But hey, Feno, I cashed one of the round robins, right?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I mean, because you get some shit about the round robins, and you have to explain like time and time again that it's not that much money, and you actually win with those.
Yeah, this one paid out 2 units, so pretty much. And I know Dan, you've lost like 50,000 round robins. Like, granted, but I'm just saying, like this one paid out. This one paid out like two. This one paid out 2 round robins because I had Charrier round 2, which we'll talk about, and we won't talk about these right now. But by the way, the other 2, Frivola by sub and Brito by sub, and again back to the old adage of the analysis not being crazy, despite the results not being there. As stupid as it was, which we'll get to, on both those guys fought at certain points, right? Like. At the end of the day, I was too close up. I was 2 decently close subs away from making a huge, massive night.
And yeah, especially the Brito one. I think it was closer than people think. The submission, like.
Yes, especially with a guy like the horsepower of Brito, and I'll get to I'll get to a technical. We get into the fight later, yeah. Yeah, because I have 2 strong technical nitpicks, and that I know I suck, but like things that I actually feel really confident on giving advice on. Yeah. We'll get there, but like, but yeah, for this one I was like, and I didn't see the takedowns he used or whatever, but like, great podcast by the way, Feno. Great early prelim podcast. I'm stoked for your full preview next week, but yeah. I think we both ended up picking Saint Denis, but I don't think either of us are surprised by this outcome. Is that speaking for you too much or no?
Yeah, I think the thing that I didn't cover is that I did not expect like the thing that, because I felt like Moicano had a pretty good shot if it went late, but I did not expect Moicano to beat the shit out of Benoit Saint Denis super early in the fight. That was kind of crazy, right? And to be honest, I don't think I saw anyone predicting anything like that.
No. And with the way my night was going, again, I'm not trying to bring it back there, but I was like, of course he's going to win in round 1, like the guy who's not supposed to, right? Because I had folks, like I couldn't do my over-the-counter bets. I only went really small again. So I've actually been keeping things smaller, but it didn't really matter the amount. I think it's just the losing streak and the people giving me shit is clearly what's bothering me. People were like, maybe you should just get off the internet, bro. And to be fair, some people were saying that to the haters. Thank you, Crafty Boxing, you're the man, Lucas. But like, but yeah, like, it's like, yeah, my job's kind of on the internet. Unfortunately, man, I wouldn't recommend it, by the way. But yeah, like, I was gonna say though, like, I couldn't do fight ends in round 2 as a round robin piece over the counter, even though I bet like half the amount or whatever. And I actually broke even, by the way, because since I couldn't do the round 2, I took Saint Denis round 1, right? Because that was my official pick and what I was gonna go with. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, dude, I said it on the podcast breaking down this fight. Round 2 is the hot round, right? And I get a better number, Feno, for playing round 2 and more coverage because either guy can finish, right? Than just playing Saint Denis round 1. But since I didn't have that option, I went to the second option, which was Saint Denis round 1. So I was like, fuck. But what I did do, Feno, is, and I'm glad I did this because, again, I was like, usually I know it feels like Saint Denis 1 and 2, Moicano 3, 4, and 5 if you were like a degenerate gambler shotgun spraying the rounds, right? To claim, who could win which round and do you want to bet that or not, right? But I said, I'm like, be careful about that. As much as I'm a big round 4 and 5 guy, I wouldn't do round 5, and even round 4 would make me nervous. I think round 3 or round 2 are actually Moicano's hot rounds, which is why I said round 2 is probably the hottest round of that matchup, right? So I missed that, but in person I did put a little bit on Moicano round 2 and round 3. So in both those, again, I only put like a small amount, and both those paid off over 4 units. So so even though I literally cashed no bets off the counter because I didn't take the over, the one thing that did hit, other thing that did hit, we'll get to the co-main in a second. Yeah, that was the only ticket I made. So again, not bad, Feno. I mean, again, when I'm betting, that's how I kind of bet. Like this time I had 8 to 9 tickets, and all I needed was 1 to break even. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, you were so close.
I mean, and I did break even, with it. And, how bad of a bettor am I? Of course, that's untracked and that doesn't count, but it's the same philosophy I take with me, right? And I only laid 4 units. Like, dude, I know people who lay more than 4 units just on prelim fights on the regular. Plenty of bettors, not making shade at anyone in particular. That's just a normal thing for plenty of people, right? Yet I bet I'm air quote responsible, and I spread that amount, Feno, and I make it so I'm not sitting here, I need to even hit half my bets to win. Like, I have it structured. I know it feels silly to say because how stupid it is to bet and how bad I'm doing. But I dare say there is some method to this madness. I'm not going to say it's smart, but there is some method to this madness, right? And that's the annoying part is people are like, they'll post my record and be like, "You're irresponsible. You're telling." I'm not telling anybody to bet anything. That's the thing. Not only am I not a pick seller, like
exactly.
I'm constantly saying, dude, it's the stupidest thing to even try to pick, much less bet. Even when I was super hot, going back years ago, when I was more ignorant and stupid than I am now, folks. You can even rewind the tape. And what was I always saying? You don't have to follow me off this cliff, but I'm excited for at my most stupidest, most confident. I always caveated, you don't have to follow me off this cliff, but this is where I'm going, And I know I'm beating a dead horse, Feno, but it's just annoying. But that's all I got to say on the main event. Good for Moicano. I was happier. I think you even said on your podcast too that it's probably be better if he wins, regardless of the pick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I really wanted to see like if like BSD came with some adjustment, and he did the classic like MMA adjustment of the guy that go balls to the wall, and he comes out like very cautious and shit. And that was what ended up getting him in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Because he threw a body kick, but he wasn't like walking down Moicano like Benoit Saint-Denis usually does, right? That's what allows his body kick to be so effective, that he mixes in with the pressure. But he was like hanging out at range, and he throws the body kick, and I was saying, I was posting some clips of saying Moicano is like an underrated counterpuncher, and obviously this is not the same, but it's like the same principle applies, that because Ryan Wagner told like if you just run at Moicano, he's not able to counter. That was the case here because like BSD gave him his time, his space. They were like probing at range. So when he throws the kick, like Moicano is like calm, he's ready, and he parries across, goes to the back, which is funny because I was posting that clip of Giuseppe saying that usually fighters do the parrying across, and they usually don't use it for anything. And this was a great case of Moicano actually using the technique for something effective.
That's very true. You sadly don't see it that often. Like, Brito did it in round 1 really nice to a leg kick to like knock Gomi off his feet, I think, and then never was able to do that again. But you don't see it that often. Very true. And thank you for filling in the holes because again, I was, again for like the billionth time, I was, Wolverining, just not even really looking at. Dude, I didn't even watch. I had to look at my results. I didn't even know who won. I'm like, okay, I'm guessing I cashed the over. Let's see. Let's See Who Won with Brendan Allen and Nasruddin Imavov. And I was hearing a post-fight of people criticizing Allen for wrestling after it clearly wasn't working. But again, I'd argue that sounds like more in line with the analysis that I gave, where Allen has been trending to going toward takedowns more, not necessarily relying on scrambles, though he can rely on that too, which I would think kind of justifies him going for it or even being okay fighting from bottom. But he looked to lack the urgency, and that seemed to be the criticism that I was hearing. Again, I didn't watch closely, Feno. And that was one thing that I was wrong on, because that was something that he might not always come forward per se, but Allen, win or lose, he seems like a guy you should like as a bettor, because he seems like a guy who's always going to fight for your money, as I always say. And people were saying he really didn't have that in him tonight. What did you see? Any of those valid? Any of those wrong? What did you see, Feno?
Yeah, what I saw is that it was a very frustrating fight. And I didn't really have a horse in this fight, but just like from a watching perspective, because it was clear to me that Allen was doing fine on the feet. He was not getting washed. And then round two, I feel like maybe because of the success that he had from top position in round one, he was very desperate for shooting for takedowns. And then we saw a big flaw from Brendan Allen that we haven't seen before, is that he doesn't have like a very good flow chart when his shots are stuffed, especially because he got stuck under sprawls, holding onto a single leg, or he was stuck in front headlocks. Most of the time, people are not willing to engage with him in those positions. So when he fails a takedown, he doesn't have to deal with any consequences. And Imavov here was just fine, just punishing him in those positions, and he didn't look great in those. And that's an area, as I said before, that we haven't seen Allen much before. What was disappointing from Allen, it was that he was insisting. He didn't realize, okay, the bad shots are taking a toll on me, are taking a toll on my cardio. I'm getting hit. I'm losing big portions of the round. I should stop this shit. And he was not able to. When he was doing fine on the feet. So that was kind of frustrating.
That makes much more sense for context now. Okay, that makes much more sense for the critiques I was hearing. And yeah, I thought that makes sense too, because I did think that, I messaged you privately, man, after, listening to the couple of dessert podcasts that I do listen to and allude to all the time on the preview podcast, right? After I listened to like fellow analysts, I was like, oh, Feno, I'm not feeling good about my Allen pick, because I feel like everybody was almost being dismissive of him, which not that they were saying anything like completely untrue, but I felt like people were like overlooking just the fact that like Imavov, he's hard to trust because he just fouls and shit, which I didn't watch any of that this fight or whatever, but he's constantly like almost losing points and stuff like on fights all the time, and he's constantly giving fighters their win condition or arguably taking away his own, right, with clinches. And I just was like, is he going to pay sometime? And thankfully he, not that I thought he was bad, I always thought he was really well skilled and trained, and I always thought he could grapple. It's not that I thought he couldn't grapple, but he showed that, okay, thankfully for him, he has the grappling to back it up, but unfortunately, I don't know if it fuels because there are like legit cool things to like about Imavov, who is a good fighter, and I'm not saying otherwise, folks. But I just feel like because he's like the Russian sniper and he's got the look, people just go like, oh, he was forged in the fires of Dagestan when, especially when he was like, for those of us know the MMA Factory Gym, right? When he was fighting out of that, we're like, and even more unproven, right? And like gassing almost every fight, we were like, whoa, let's relax now, let's chill out. And I'm not saying he's bad, but it's like, I don't think he's like fucking like middleweight Khabib. Let's fucking chill, because you know how it is with the Shara bullet effect, right? Anybody that has, right? They're just like, oh, they just start like just jerking it, right? Like the bottom feeding trolls who look at my Action Network betting tracker app. They're like, oh, where's Dan's betting record? I'm having a bad week. There it is. Yeah. But anyways, same people that probably jerk, fetishize the Dagestanis, like my guy Kyle Mack, Combat Chronicles always talks about. But yeah, the overhit, and then there were some suspect split decisions. Maybe it would have been cool if like I got on the right end of that. But again, Feno, I don't root for these things to happen. I just root for the stuff that should happen to happen. And we'll move on to Joanderson Brito versus Gomi, where I was literally going Feno, going like, come on, I see everybody cash the stupidest shit every week and like have no fucking hubris or awareness about it, no honesty about it, no humility about it. I'm like, all I'm asking is for the guy that should fucking finish somebody more than anybody should finish somebody this year to finish the person. That's all I'm asking for here. That's all I'm asking for. And fucking Brito couldn't do it. I liked your tweet and retweeted it. I saw it coming. I tweeted before the fight happened that I saw it coming. Feno, I don't know if you caught that part of the podcast when you dropped by, but as I was talking shit and laughing about how we, for whatever reason, we, of all people that me and you, not that we don't dislike fighters or make jokes, but I would say even with that, we're usually pretty respectful, right? But for whatever reason, we fucking tear into Gomis. I was like, watch, folks. I'm like, because this was, maybe to say that it was the most confident bet of the year is to say something, but it was one of them in the sense that that's what betting is, right? You have to find the matchups that you're confident on and the lines that don't make sense. And it's not that you Anderson Brito is like Jose Aldo or Topuria, or something out there, right? Like, it's not like that I'm rating him that high. It's not so much that as the fact that I was rating Gomis very low. And the fact that even my non-bias, or whatever bias, or the betting bro bias, like, oh, he's scared and this and that, and, it's a mismatch, and they're feeding him to this. This is the guy that the promotion wants to win, bro. I don't know if you heard the commentary on the way out. They were even saying this shit, Feno, going like, yes, so some have said that it could be a punishment for Gomis. Even Gomis' own people are telling him that this is a punishment for him. His own people, bro. The broadcast is supposed to be non-biased, bro, are even saying this shit in my defense. Like, it feels like a setup upon setup. And I don't think it was a robbery, for the record, Feno. I'm going to have you as the non-biased party here weigh in on the fight for the scorecard controversy. But as soon as I heard Ben Cartilage 29-28, and you guys, and again, guys, of course it's going to be the judge that, like, I stick up for the hardest, right? Despite him, if I were to, critique Ben, I could pull up old fights like him giving a round to Alex Morono where fucking Keita Nakamura successfully countered him the whole round and had him hunched over, doubling over to the body, a la like Jonathan Martinez, Andre Uhl, kind of bad scorecard shit, right?
Yeah.
He was, and again, not as much, even then, despite people saying that, Dan crying or coping, I didn't say it was a robbery when, coincidentally, I've been on the wrong end of all these ones, right? Let's go to O'Malley and Yan. I didn't even say that was a robbery, right? But Cartilage scored for O'Malley in that fight too, and that was a fight where I believe everyone was arguing about the wrestling, that part of the criteria, which sucked because it if you just focus on that argument, then yeah, it led you to the O'Malley side. But you didn't even have to factor that in to score for Peter Yan if you actually scored bodywork properly. Like, shout out to Ryan Wagner. Like, he's like, dude.
And leg kicks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I asked Ryan Wagner after that fight happened. I'm like, you're non-biased. You didn't bet on it, right? He's like, yeah. Like, privately DM'd. And he's like, I'm like, okay, what's the most... I went for like a non-biased breakdown for breakdown. I'm like, what's the most impactful strikes in these ones? Like, the leg kicks, the counters, and the body kick. In fact, it was the body kick that O'Malley caught. And people don't realize that just because you catch it doesn't mean like you blocked it. You still absorb it. To your point, Feno, your tweet earlier, even if you fucking block it, it still absorbs, right? And
and I feel like people get some confusion because like the UFC stats, and some people hate the stats. I think they are useful, but I think people are confused about what they mean because significant strikes are something that is used on the broadcast. Is not something that is part of the criteria at all. Like judges don't have access to stats. They are not supposed to be counting significant strikes. So if you count like a block kicked or not as a significant strike, it's like just like semantics.
Yes.
But as you have been into the judging courses, like there's no thing in the criteria that says that block strikes are worth nothing, right?
Right.
If you get visibly affected by a strike, it doesn't matter where it lands. If it's blocked, that strike is damaging. Perfectly that strike is scored. So So, and we talk about in the Altamirano
Ye-
versus Barres fight.
Sure.
Uh,
Oh yeah, that
yeah,
one
it
too.
doesn't
That one
matter.
too.
It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you tally up in the significant strikes because significant strikes are not used to to score fights. Uh, but even, for example, people say leg kicks. Not all checks are made equal.
Yes.
I think I a lot of times I disagree with the broadcast. Oh, that was a very good check, and I'm like, no, I don't think that was a very good one. I think the fighter that tried to check got the worst of that one.
Yeah. Especially depending on how planted their leg is, right? Even if it is the more positive effect, like if they're going for a calf kick, those are the ones where the check can really hurt, right? For sure.
Yeah.
But even those, it's like, well, are they just planting their foot, or were they off one foot? Was it half up? Because we've seen some of the finishing leg kick blows be one where their leg is up like they're checking, but they're just still getting hacked. It's still a target there
Yeah.
that's hanging there. They're getting hacked, and it still hurts the fighters, and they fall and they get knocked down and stop from it. Like that just happened like this year. But by the way, Fenyo, to your point, yes, I have taken those courses, and you explained it exactly correctly the way they explain it too. They go over that dynamic that just because a kick is blocked doesn't mean you shouldn't be scoring it. It's the effect, right? And not only have I taken those courses and passed those courses, by the way, I've also been in the actual official judges' meetings, right? And picking back up to, and I will round it to this relevant point so we can move on, folks, but picking up to that Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley, Fenyo, I was in the official judges' meeting with those judges and the whole judges and refs that month where they went over that fight. Audience, ghost in the chat, people in the chat, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. But how many of you? Because they went through all the judges and all these people, and they even had some media people. They didn't call on me, unfortunately, right? But they even had some media people who were in attendance. Answer: how many people for any of the rounds cited the body work?
Yeah, and it was very impactful. Yeah.
Guess how many? There was probably about 12 people that were cited for scores. How many of the 12?
2, 1, 0.
There was probably 2 or 3 who cited leg kicks for at least one of the rounds. Okay, but none of the body work was even fucking mentioned, and those were some of the biggest shots in the round, right? So again, it's not just me being, I'm sour about my bets. Like, no, I actually have the information, the stats. I can cite the exact judges, the exact fights over a decade time span and then some. And I've been in these exact meetings and qualified for some of the exact same things, folks. This isn't just cope, okay? And so the ironic part, which again we'll talk about with Barres and that fight too, I'm always, what am I always coping about? What am I always crying about, Fenyo? Is that body work encounters aren't getting judged, right? And I know I'm not the only person, but you're part of that choir too. You're less annoying than me, of course. You're not annoying, but you get what I'm saying. But we're all part of that same choir. So how ironic? I don't even know if I can use irony because I'm involved, but how ironic that the judges / these specific judges, right? I'm not just blanket criticizing the judges, right? I'm actually talking about specific judges and their specific trends. How great is it, Fenyo, that they finally the times where they do decide to judge body work encounters, huh? Because
of course,
the reason why I don't think it's a robbery, and Fenyo, you can weigh in on this, and even though I know I'm just coping here, even though I'm actually again about to explain why I don't think it's a robbery, but I think Gomes was landing really good body work and he was getting reactions from it, and I think that's another scorecard, same reasoning for another scorecard as well, especially in rounds 1 and 3 especially. But yeah. Fenyo, what was your opinion? Is that what you were seeing too? Some effective body work encounters from Gomes that people weren't crediting?
Round one, I think some people were like very passionate going Gomes' way, and others like very hard on Brichu. I ended up scoring it live for Brichu because he clearly hurt Gomes in the last like 40 seconds or so.
Yep.
And I actually rate the submission attempt because it looked very close to me, and it wasn't clear that Gomes had a way out. So I think that I scored those kind of submission attempts very highly.
Absolutely.
And And yeah, and from some people were citing the top position from Gomez. I don't think he landed anything of note. Obviously, the small shots still count. They're still like putting some monies into the into the piggy bank, right? But yeah, but I thought it was close. Gomez had some, and to be honest, like some people were like, "Oh, Gomez was having the body work," but Brito was landing hard leg kicks before the grappling exchange too. So you cannot disregard that. I would have to rewatch the first round to be completely sure, but I went Brito live, and then in round two, obviously for Brito, and then third, that one was clearly for Gomez. I think Brito
I think so.
Eventually made it kind of close at the end, but not enough to make it a swing round, in my opinion. So robbery, I'm not sure. Maybe it was a bad decision. I would have to rewatch how bad Gomez was hurt. I would have to rewatch the guillotine, maybe. But I can see why a judge maybe can give it to Gomez. So,
although you can, and again, staying with the consistency of the judges themselves and tonight, it was the parts where they were, again, I don't know if it's coincidence or ironic because I'm involved here, Feno, but it was ironic that like there were plenty of fights that were just as close, if not closer, 29-28s, or just as clear, if not clearer, 29-28s, that ended up getting at least one, if not all 30-27s. You get what I'm saying? How many times did we see that shit tonight? But of course, for my Crux fight, right? Of course for this fight, they're like, well, this one will be more subjective and wishy-washy. We'll actually even favor some bodywork encounters. How about that? Love it, right, Feno? How crazy is who did that song? Is it an ironic, right?
That's the time that judges decide to score that, right?
No, but I mean, you get what I'm saying here. I'm not saying it's a robbery, but am I unwarranted? Is that an unwarranted observation?
No, it's fair. It's fair. It's kind of weird. Like judges always kind of. I mean, it's weird because you know how fights should be scored, and I'm not saying that it should have been scored one way or the other here.
Right.
But you also have ingrained for years and years of watching fights how judges score the fights. So when they go and actually get it right in between quotes, it's kind of weird, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And of course, for me, we all know when that happens, right? And it also sucks because even though all these points I feel are valid, again, I don't believe it's a robbery, and I'm not just saying that to avoid the cope that I will get labeled, regardless of what I do, because I have a recap show, and that recap equals cope. But also because, like you said initially on the tweet we referenced, Feno, like we both thought Brito was fighting stupid from the jump, and he was just asking for trouble with the way he was fighting. And I know he's not the smartest fighter, but even for him, as you said, right, you threw that caveat in there, even for him, he's fighting pretty dumb. And the one adjustment I will say, which I hate not to see, and again, I know I suck focus at everything, and that's all fine, that's all valid. I'm not even fucking arguing with you guys, but if you do grapple, please listen to me on this. Whenever you get someone reaching across their body, you have a GIF wrap, okay? So if they're reaching across, if you feel someone reaching across, you lift your hip pressure, whether you're in a full mount, whether you're in a half guard, right? Or even a side control, which, the only reason why they would be doing that in side control is they're going to, at that point, be going full turtle and giving their back and going into scramble mode. Yeah. So you really got to catch them with that chest pressure. But you can often catch it with your chest pressure and kind of pin with just your chest their reach across, right? Whenever they reach across, try to pin your chest onto their tricep, right? And you still have two arms free to punch and to reach around and gift wrap. Reach around behind the head and you gift wrap, right? This is even more easier, I dare say, when you have a head and arm attempt, even if it's not just even, but especially if it's a bad head and arm attempt. A bad head and arm attempt is a beautiful transition opportunity, right? So when you have it there, instead of going deeper or waiting for him to move and getting that adjustment that Brito did, right? And wasting energy, at that point, take it in your own hands. Either squeeze if you really feel like you want to get it. If you really want to gamble, okay. But if you're not going to get that gamble, just keep enough head pressure to keep it pinned. And
Yeah.
the arm is already reaching across. The arm is already here in some form or fashion. You've already got that isolated. It's not a big reach. You saw it here. He was actually grabbing here, Brito. When he was grabbing the tricep. You grab down by the wrists and you pin him to a gift wrap. And what I do, because I actually like the head and arm, and I go back to the head and arm with it. It's not even just transition. Like, even if you want the head and arm, you still use this to transition to a deeper head and arm, right? So you go head and arm, gift wrap, reach around once that's pinned, and then you boom. Or if it's striking, you can strike him first and then go for it.
Rob himself the opportunity to adjust with his grip selection. I also felt like he was too high with the hips. He should have been lower, closer to Gomez's hips to have more control of his posture, and then he could have like put the head down, which is something that you can do on the arm triangle, because like he had like Gomez on the side, right? and the thing is that the arm was kind of high. You can still finish it if you have like a very close, because it's a blood choke, as they say.
Yes,
so you can still finish high on the neck. But the thing is that somewhere there was some kind of space, and Bridget was trying to muscle that one down. He could have gone with the rear naked choke grip, and then like slightly like start to creeping out instead of like just muscling down. Yeah. I feel like when you go for like strength head and arm choke, it's better when you are like full in like side control. You have space to move your hips away, and then you can like really like post on your head and pressure with the shoulder down, and you similar to a bone flu. I feel like that one is like very good when you go for like the strength, like just squeeze head and arm.
Yes.
I used to like that one a lot, but you need space for that one, and because they were just right on the cage, I feel like he needed like a more technical finish in that case.
Yep, absolutely. Gift wraps at MMA, man. Like, people been doing it forever. Was it Amir Sadala got it done to him by like Dong Young Kim was a sick one where he just got finished from there. That gift wrap, that mount, right? Like, because you got the strikes there, you don't even have to have the submission, right? You retain position, and you also encourage them to give their back, right? So if you got them a gift wrap, not only you're forcing them to give their back, but you're forcing them to at least turn to their free arm. So whether they're giving them their back or not, you can actually tilt them to their side, so their weight is on their free arm, and then their other arm is gift wrapped like this. So you make them pick their poison. Strike them. Are you going to give me the head and arm? Are you going to fully give me the back? And with this arm being pinned and this arm being here trying to get down, as soon as you let go, you've got a lane for your rear naked choke on this same closing grip structure there.
I think Ortega, when he mount Jair on the time that he beat him, he was like on the going with the head and arm, forcing Jair to turn around to the back, right? Yes. And then Ortega grabs the gift wrap, and he immediately has like the seat belt on him, because he allows him to rotate immediately into that. So that's like very cool transitions, and I feel like fighters are missing out on some of them. Brito is a good grappler, so it's not that he's not a. I mean, he goes for power submissions a lot. Like, he goes for the power guillotines and that kind of shit, but he has some technique. I feel like he's a legit black belt. If you go the way he passes and the way he was like grapevine the legs in some of the transitions, you can tell that Brito, there's technique involved there. It wasn't just like a lack of judgment in the moment, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. He was doing like he wasn't putting it together, but that chain that I highlighted. Thank you guys for sharing that thread, by the way. That Moicano, that two-way takedown chain that I was highlighting. He was doing like one version or the other, but he wasn't chaining it, you know? He was just selling out for the Makachev against the fence, or he was chasing the step-arounds. Like, he was just selling out for one or the other. Again, too much of that mentality when, to your point, Feno, it's right there. And also, shout out to GM3, by the way. Different context, but he hit Shabazian with a similar pick your poison trap, right? Turn to give you back, or head and arm, right? He went for the head and arm, and he gave him daylight for the escape, and then used it to adjust, right? And I think that's what Brito wanted. He was hoping for a cleaner version of that, but he just took the path of harder resistance, obviously, which is Breedo. Shout out to Chris London. DT coming in hot. Thank you, sir. By the way, 5 watchers, only 3 likes and 1 dislike. So whoever the lone person who hasn't, 6. So whoever the 2 people who haven't watched or hit the like, could you hit the like? I mean, both, to be honest, actually give me engagement, but for whatever reason, it's showing me the dislikes. Might not show you guys, but it likes to show me because my mental health isn't bad enough. So it's gonna show me dislikes. For that reason, I want to make Fenyo just handle memberships from here on out. I just don't want to see the numbers anymore. But thank you guys. I appreciate you all. 7 now. Cool. Thank you guys for the like. I see it. You guys rock. I know I don't deserve it, but I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna get to questions in the chat if you guys want to contribute. And again, I'm usually not a big deal on it, but like these are the one thing that I have been trying to keep behind a paywall. And if you guys notice, I've been making them free more than not. And if anything, what I'm going to be doing now, and Fenyo agrees, where we're going to make these free, like the show after, so we can all join in and talk. And then if you guys want the full versions later or whatever, that'll be for the paid members. But since we've been doing that, I've been getting mostly negative comments and stuff. So I'm like, man, I put these open for free for non-members, and I'm just getting like bombed. So seeing the positive stuff's actually making me feel less shitty for less stupid for making this free. So thank you. Chris London says, don't listen to that chump Martian guy. Is butthurt because he's 600 pounds in 600 pounds in and can't build a following. Hey, it might be for the wrong reasons right now, but I guess I have a following. Hey, these haters follow me, right? So at least they're literally, they do. I don't know why, Fenyo, but they do. So yeah, I guess I have a following in more ways than one. No, shouts to you, Chris. I appreciate that, man. Let's go to the next fight. Someone was joking, Fenyo, like maybe the judges were mad, the Gomi, for the scorecards. Maybe the judges were mad because Brian Battle fucking stirred everybody up before that. But yeah, man, he went full. Like, I mean, I definitely felt the hate from the French as an American. Like, I did not feel very welcome there. You know what I'm saying? Like I had a good time. I partied down, and met a couple beautiful women in France, if I dare say so myself. But they weren't French, man. They were not French. I will tell you that. Those girls did not want to talk to Dan Tom. Okay, so let's get the romance and the American love, straight. So I don't blame Brian Battle. At the same time, he's also the reason why it's so hard for us to go travel anywhere, because that's what people assume. For the Americans, Fenyo, any comments on the post-fight speech of the fight itself, which was a good fight, by the way? Kevin Doucette and Brian Battle. I think it was a really good fight. All bullshit aside, Fenyo, what do you think?
Yeah, it was an interesting fight. I was expecting Kevin Doucette to expose some of the defensive flaws of Brian Battle, who has been having a pretty large height and reach advantage in most of his fights as of late, and it was the case actually. But then Brian Battle was like, and this one I thought was very interesting, that he was, because Battle in the past has been selling off on punching very hard. Here he was very, very loose, and you can tell he was not putting that much like a sting into his punches. He was still punching hard because he was punching with that relaxing technique. Gives you a bit of a whip at the end of your punches, right? Kind of like not similar in mechanics, but it's kind of the same concept of like the Diaz brothers. Like they punch very relaxed, and that allows them to maintain such like intense volume. And that was the case with Battle. Battle was putting numbers together, but he was not exerting a lot of energy doing so. And something that I did not talk about in the preview, but was very apparent here, is that Doucette is kind of stiff. And I mean, I've talked about Doucette being stiff in the past, but that can be bad when you have to defend against combinations, because when you get all like tense and shit, you start getting hit with shit that you don't see coming. Those hurt you very bad. And the other thing is that Doucette, and this is a thing that I think it's a problem with quite a few city kickboxing guys. They have this like taking turns kickboxing style.
Yeah, yeah.
And Brian Battle was not giving Giuseppe his turns on the second round. And even though Giuseppe was like clearly having more effect with his punches early, Brian Battle just put on the pressure. I mean, not the pressure, more like the volume, and he just props to Battle because he stayed very relaxed in that finishing combination. He was just still throwing loose. He wasn't trying to take his head off. He knew this guy's not defending anymore. I'm just going to keep punching at this same rate, and if he survives, I'll be fine because this is my pace. This is my work rate. I'm not gonna get tired, and this guy is suffering right now. So I thought, even though I do not like the style of Brian Battle a lot, and I think this fight exposed many of the flaws that I saw about him in the
Mhm.
past. But I think he has a very good feel for fighting, and he made very good decisions here, even though he was a bit outgunned in some exchanges. He kept his cool. Obviously, he has a very good chin. That guy, he was getting rocked, but his composure was very good in this fight. And yeah, he put on a very good performance. Impressed by Brian Battle here.
Yeah, yeah, man. Same here. Again, I've never been a big fan of him or of his style, but like I saw some of a hint of this last fight, so I guess I got more of my positives reaffirmed. Though I agree with the negatives that you're saying, but I'm just saying that I think I got more of my positives reaffirmed as to why I picked Battle, even though I like Giuseppe and was real tempted to pick him. Right? It's just because he just seems like he has a good mind for fighting. Like his brain clicks for what's going on really well. As obvious and stupid as that statement might have sounded, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like he's a fighter. Like some guys like really like question themselves. Uh, And you can tell, for example, and it was surprising because I saw like Ange Lusa going to fucking war against Jack Della in Contender Series, and
Yeah.
you can tell he was doubting himself, but he was forcing
Yes.
himself into the fight. He was forcing himself into the fight, and I hate to talk about like that. And I think we talked about this fight previously, but
Yeah.
against Brian Battle, he looks so hopeless. Like he was
Yeah.
hating his out there.
If it
I'm
didn't
not
get,
saying I'm not saying that he didn't have any chance to
right.
win, but it was looking bleak for the guy.
And that's why, and it was, and even my inkling has gotten stronger and stronger, which is funny because again, I'm not even a big Brian Battle guy, right? But I had an inkling, not as strong back then, but enough to play him in round two. And sure enough, he proves that all right and gets the round two stoppage that we thought maybe he was going to get. If not, probably round three, because to your point, Lusa was looking like he was not going to be long for that, right? And you look at the
Yeah,
approach that he proved against a much harder hurdle with the height parity that he had to deal with, and still proved it against Jusei. Like that accounts for that accounts for a lot. And you know, again, it was kind of I was a little worried when he started trying to go judo for judo. I thought he was going to try to make a point because I talked about his high, because I think everybody so stereotypes the bad wrestling that he has. Not realizing that Battle's made improvements there. Not that he's a
yeah,
world beater, but he has made improvements, and he comes from Hayastan, that lineage I was trying to explain, which was kind of ironic because it actually ended up completing the thread. Right, you did that beautiful, by the way, that Darce choke thread, and I loved
yeah,
how so you know what I'm talking about exactly here, Fenya, where when you can't force it, but when it organically links to the narrative of the thread, it's pretty cool, right?
yeah. I thought it was very cool because I ended up talking about very few fighters. It was very connected,
Yes,
one milestone to the next.
right.
Uh, because first you have like Dustin and Tony going at it, and then Luke pops out. But then Woodley have the title defense, and then Woodley loses to Luke. It was very interesting that way.
Yeah, yeah. So you exactly. So you know exactly this dynamic, right? And you see this. You see these patterns, just like we look for patterns as analysts when you do the history side of it. As you've obviously dabbled in too, Fenyo. Case in point, right? You see those same. You spot the same. You start to spot similar. Not similar, but you start to spot patterns there as well,
Yeah,
right? And for this one, it was kind of cool because I was like, well, what are the counters to all these? And coincidentally, they were highest stand fighters, right? It was Carl Parisian, the original one, right? The Gene LaBelle Gokor gym, and then it was Ronda Rousey who in the sample that was showing the counters. And I didn't even mean to that. And then
yeah,
I was doing tape on the fight, right? And I had Usman earlier in it, and of course Ange Lusa is like they compare him to Usman because they're training partners and people are racist, right? So it was funny to see like Ange Lusa, right? So it's like, oh, he must wrestle. I'm like, oh, because he's black like Usman too, it means he wrestled. Like, I always love that too. Everyone assumes Lusa's a wrestler, even though he can, obviously. I'm just saying, it's just that.
Yeah,
like
he's
that
a decent wrestler, but he's not like he's not like. He didn't grow up wrestling like Kamaru Usman, right?
It's that same stereotype of people who they're calling bullshit. Their analysis bullshit, and they might not be racist people, but they're actually leaning into racist tropes when they're like, oh, Gomes is a way better athlete than Brito. He's younger. I'm like, oh, is that why? Is that what's making you say that? Sure shit not as athleticism.
He's a better athlete because he's younger and he's taller. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that's why, because it's certainly not the actual athleticism. We're sure shit not that. But it's that whole it's that whole thing. So but yeah, back to this fight. It was funny. So it was funny to see Lusa try that on Battle, and then Battle hits the same fucking reversal that like Caro and Rousey hit before, and I don't even think he's ever met them or whatever, because I don't know, like these guys, it's like a separate, it's not Gokor, it's some separate Armenian guys who I think they were out here for a little bit in highest and Las Vegas, and now they're out in North Carolina. So again, I thought that was crazy that like both the lineages connected, the offensive lineage of Usman and then the other stablemates lineage of the counters. They ended up doing the same shit. Like, it's just crazy how that fucking connects. All right, next fight was, what was it? Charrier versus Miranda. So again, we hit the round 2 here. I felt this was easy. This was going to be my prop squad over Frivola by sub, but the odds makers no Feno. Like, I could barely get +3 to 1 on a round 2 prop, which is crazy. The average used to be like, even low average, like +450 to like, and not even the higher ones, like for favorites, like +450 to +800, right? And now they know, they whenever you're facing like the Herbert Burnses of the world, right? Or the like these first rounder bus guys, like everybody knows now, right? It's just, that's the dynamic, right? That's my favorite dynamic, because even when I'm bad, this is the one that I keep saying is the one that pays off, and that's why it justifies me chasing them in the round robins, and it paid off in my round robin. Crazy. Just didn't get a great number for it. But Feno, anything to say on this fight?
I thought you made a very good read on the round 2, because like Gabriel Miranda, if you watch the fight against like Benoit Saint-Denis, a very similar kind of guy, that grappler that kicks and goes super hard, and then if they don't accomplish what they want, they start burning, and that was the case here. And as I was saying, tweeting during the fights, like, and it wasn't the case in the main event, right? But trying to get body locks on these French guys who know their judo is like, it's not that you don't even need the judo background, because it's that in every MMA gym you have good judo guys. That's the thing. That's the same thing with South Koreans, right? You see, for example, strikers in MMA that come from South Korea, like Do Ho Choi, very strong in the clinch because he's dealing with judo guys every day during camp. And it was the same case here. Miranda was going hard with the body locks. Charrier was countering with foot sweeps, with hip toss. Not like getting like super clean takedowns, but he was like countering the attempts and not getting put in bad positions. And then Gabriel Miranda ended up like super tired second round, makes a bad decision early, and Charrier puts him out. And it was the knockout of the night.
Yeah, that left hook, man, that was beautiful. There was another knockout in I think the PFL or some really good or some international, some kind of a fight that people were saying was like a low key fight of the year or some shit. That happened right after this fight. But I think the left hook was so good that people were like, oh, another left hook knockout. But I saw the highlight of that other fight, and it was a step back counter cross from southpaw. But of course, everybody always ignores stances. We know that. Even that's actually better than like the fighters. The fighters are actually some of the worst. Like, not to pick on DC, which it feels like we always do, but I think DC and some other fighters are really bad. Where if it's a southpaw, and Rogan does this too, where it's a southpaw, they hit him with the rear hand, like, oh, big right hand. And then it's just that awkward quietness because no one wants to correct him, like the broadcaster, like the broadcasters. Which, by the way, like I actually like the broadcasting team. Again, even though people think I hate Felder for that sharing that sharing that one thing where that was not even about him, but was just, it was just an example of many. But Felder's great, by the way. He was on another, I forget, I was watching tape for a fight for this one, and he was making jokes with like Sanko or somebody where I was just like, this is Felder right here. He's like that personable, like a more funny Jens Pulver, just at his best, real funny. But even Felder and Bisping will say like their ground game stuff's not the best. So I was kind of quietly laughing, going like, and Gooden's like the most self-deprecating of them all, and he actually quietly has the most fighting and martial arts experience of all the play-by-play commentators, and I'm just like, it's hilarious. He won't flex it, but Gooden had the most jiu-jitsu knowledge by far on that podcast.
I was watching earlier today. I was watching Hobart versus Figlak, and Gooden was saying how Figlak was training with Renegade, the camp of Leon Edwards, right?
Yeah.
And Gooden was like, and I've been in there sparring with those dudes.
Yeah.
And DC just laughing his ass off, and he's such a douchebag about it.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, you've been in there, Gooden. You've been in there, right?"
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Bisping always does it to Brendan
Fitzgerald. He always bullying him.
But Bisping is arguably more of a jock than DC in that sense. And B, I like Brendan, but Brendan arguably fucking deserves it with some of the shit that he says. So so I get why they have their wire to jump on those guys. But to your point, it's like, yeah, Gooden actually knows what he's talking about though. So it's like, obviously, if I didn't fuck my career up and were in those positions, I would be that same guy where because again, I wouldn't be able to get the positions of color. I'd have to be play-by-play, and you had to be self-deprecating and pretend you don't know and set them up like a volleyball serve. Like, what do you think of that?
I've always been saying that the big mistake was making Rogan not that guy. Rogan should be the guy that is getting dunked on by the fighters.
Yes, yeah.
Because early, if you go like very, very back in the UFC, Goldberg like sometimes refuses to do play-by-play, right? That is his job. And
unless it's to say the Turk. Sorry, unless he's saying the Turk, of course. Sorry, go on.
And Rogan is doing play-by-play most of the time, and he's actually pretty good at that.
Yeah.
And now we have Anik doing play-by-play, and Anik is good at doing play-by-play, and Rogan's color commentating is shit most of the time.
Yeah, and not only that, Rogan also used to be the guy, to his credit, right? He used to be the guy that was giving the good ground, or at least breaking it down for the every man, right? Which I know people still use that talking point in 2024, but it was true at one point, right? Like Rogan actually was pretty decent at breaking it down for the every man.
Especially when the problem with Rogan is that he started falling off, not because of the new stuff in jiu-jitsu, and there's a little bit of that, but it's because fighters are wrestling so much more, and you can tell that Rogan is it's not his word.
Right.
When people are wrestling.
And then since he's not prepping, he would just be more reactive. He's become more reactive, Joe. So
he's
it's
close. He's just trying to connect to the thing that he remembers from like 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but that was just a funny note. So I think we finished talking about Shari and that. So let's talk about finish off the main card, and we'll knock out the prelims. Frevola lost to Fraziem. Big knee knockout. Wow. The bet, in my opinion, was already lost. I already tore up my Frevola ticket money line, as well as the sub play. And I know a loss is a loss, but in my defense, I feel like Frevola proved me and his backers right. In the beginning, like he looked like he was fighting the fight, at least that he kind of needed to fight for the most part. He got close on a guillotine again. That was that was plus 700 if that hits, right? Plus the money line. That's a huge night. That hits Feno. That's a 6 to 7 unit swing. Even if I don't hit the Brito sub, right? Let's just say I just hit that one. That's a 6 to 7 unit swing. That more than makes up for not for everything, but
for everything else.
Yeah.
For the night.
Yeah, it's great. It would have been great. And so I was so excited, like no way, right? And it wasn't meant to be. And technically speaking, non-Kopi, even though this is all Cope by definition, right? he did the smart thing. I'm like, good, single leg, good. I could tell he trained. He needs to be reaping the outside leg or picking it up for a single leg and chaining and off balancing. I think that's going to be good because whatchamacallit, both from the clinch, and I know that doesn't always make sense for tall guys, but if you actually watch some of the tape on Ziem, and even though he was like taken down by Figlag, you look at like where he like took him down and other things, like he's gotten better. He's made improvements, right? Like to be fair, right? I don't want to make it sound like I was like completely discounting Ziem here, even though Frivola was probably the dog I felt the best about compared to Allen or Zinikova. I know low hanging fruit, but still. Even then though, again, I wasn't like I was completely discounting Ziem, so I apologize if I did, folks. But he had shown improvements in the clinch and double leg defense, right, against the cage, right? So when Frivola started off balancing him and moving him, like good. And sure enough, that's where he actually got his successful takedown in round one and got the top position, right? Was off of the single. And almost, and I'll kick it to you, Feno. Literally after that, Feno, he literally chose every move besides that. Like, even in one scramble in the third round, he ends up on a single. And I'm like, yes, this is where you drive. Now's where you drive. And he's like, no, I'm going to turtle away and go Sakuraba Kimura. I'm like, why did you do that? Like, he literally did like every option outside of the single after it working. It was like the same thing with Brito. Like, they're going to tease me and let me get so close to having these huge night Fenos. And then I just got to watch them. And again, I know it's Frivola, I know it's Brito. We're not talking about rocket scientists here, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? But just going from doing the exact right thing to the exact wrong thing for the rest of the fight.
Yeah,
what do you...
yeah, it was the same for both. And it was like bad selection of takedowns here because like we've seen, and I see where you were coming from, because if you go back to the previous Pharisee fights where he got into a bit of trouble, he was getting taken down by not fantastic takedowns.
No, yeah.
By Puelles and by
Puelles too, yeah.
And by also the Leon Edwards teammate, Jai Herbert.
Right. I know it's early in his career, but didn't he arguably lose to Jamie Malarkey too? Like, and it was I'm glad he got the decision because it was like more wrestling heavy from Malarkey, but Malarkey was essentially grinding him. And it was one of those, it was a close fight, but because he was doing the wrestling and traditional forms of thought, like we talked about, most of the Gen Pop thought Malarkey won. It was one of those deals. So I'm not saying it was a robbery, obviously, but again, the guy's been in tough fights throughout his career when grappling has been involved. Or also, tougher than they should have been.
Yeah, and I feel like we saw some regression in Matt Frevola's wrestling.
Yeah.
If you watch his tools for control against longer guys in his fight against Jalen Turner. Turner, obviously, at that point, not a very good scrambler, but still, like, Frevola had the selection of tools was actually very smart. He's actually preventing the turtling. He was controlling the wrist and going like putting the knee over the other arm to prevent him for turtling. He was doing that kind of stuff. And here he was doing control that allows such a tall guy as Pharisee to just turtle. And you know they are like hard to take the back because you can fall over and that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Especially if you allow them to post like very far because you can't break the base. I don't know. I have the striking of Frevola also a bit disappointing here, I would say.
Yeah.
For example, at his best, Frevola in this new, like, because Frevola had a transformation similar to Drew Dover, funny because they fought, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Where they were like bangers on the feet, but people didn't really respect their power, and they were like kind of like point finding a lot. And then one day they woke up and they choose violence.
Yes.
And Drew Dover and Frevola started like fucking people up for some reason. But in his best performances, Frevola was using those like very big strikes because he has never been very good at the subtle stuff, right? Yeah. But he was like controlling the space with the threat of the big body kick, with the Superman punch, and here he was just like staying in range against the super tall guy, not giving him much reason to back him up, and then he was making his entries very obvious, right? And Pharisee is not a fighter that you want to do that against. It's not that his defense is perfect, but he's a decent counter puncher. He goes to the body a lot, and Frevola with the big movements was allowing Pharisee to regain center of the cage time and time again.
Yeah.
Siam his credit, very. This is the second time that I've been very surprised with his strength for such a like a skinny
Same.
boy.
Yeah,
So
same.
strong. Against Figlak too, he was
Yeah.
mounted and he hit such absurd escape in that fight.
Dude, yeah, he like Revola had such a hard time bridging into him, but like yeah,
Yeah,
ZM had like deceptively strong core whenever he needed it. It seemed like
yeah.
as well, and I definitely don't want to like. I agree with that all that stuff on Frivola, but I also want to make sure I'm giving ZM his flowers too because he really did look
No,
good.
Siam, very good. Yeah,
He just he looked good here. And it's not even that I thought he was a bad fighter prior, right? It was just like you could see the thought as far as like my thought there, and even Las Vegas opened Matt Frivola as the favorite technically, right? It was the public money that faded him. But yeah, so I don't feel crazy for that one. It just sucks that I couldn't get it. And again, whether it's a mixture, it's like I feel like I've had my luck's bad enough, but like that one of these things is more than enough to fuck me up. Like whether it's the guy I'm betting on coming in looking crappy, Feno. But it's not just that. It's the guy I'm betting on coming in looking crappy. The guy I'm betting
and the
against
other guy
looking
looking
good.
great.
And that's not even including all the ref and judge trends that again I'm coincidentally always on the wrong end of once it makes it out of the fighter's hands. So I have so many hurdles just to fucking catch a bet. I feel like I'm just like, dude, so many things swimming upstream here. Their main card opener, by the way, not that it matters, but my alternative card format, I think. Well, maybe it wouldn't have aged well because the co-main event was crappier than was not as good as the main event. But I think aged pretty well otherwise. But thank you for making the point for me though. When you were like two light heavyweight fights in a row and they both go to decision, right? Of course. Like this is why my alternative card format column, I always try to break up the weight classes. Big, small, big, small,
Yeah,
big, small. Guy, girl, big, small, kind of where I can. Like I'm still trying to put the shitty stuff first, right? I'm still trying to bury all the women's bantamweight and men's heavyweight fights in the beginning, if you notice. but I definitely wouldn't have had this one this high. Cute Laba tried to fight smart, and still did some of his weird shit. But was it more of just the level of Volkan Ozdemir under disguise here that made Cute Laba look like a somewhat competent fighter for portions of the fight?
I semi watched this one because when I said that I was going
Oh
to
yeah,
make
that's
lunch,
right.
I
Yeah.
was I was being real. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I thought Kutulava was doing some decent stuff. Uh, I think Kutulava is weird because he's clearly a good wrestler.
Yeah.
And he chooses the weirdest time to shoot takedowns, and he looks like shit sometimes.
Yeah, like what was it like? I don't know if he got scared off early from like Misha Serkinov submitting him early in the UFC career. Like just checked, like made him insecure with his grappling, so he just started overcompensating by hulking on the feet.
Yeah,
But like, yeah, to your point, he could always wrestle. Those were always credentials, and he was even. I
do
don't
you
know if you
remember
saw,
when he fought like Khalil Roundtree? He just beat
just took
him
him
to the
out. Yeah,
ground and smashed him. Yeah,
yeah, and I know that's what shout out to Eric Nixick, like not just for being a good coach, but of course it would be a good coach like that who has to has to deal you never get it easy. He's got the Sean Stricklands of the world, of course. But like I'm more talking about the Iwan Kutalabas and Roman Dolidze. Like imagine being in both of those guys' corner and you're a guy as smart as Nixick. Like, no wonder my man needed some hair plugs. Those guys were making him pull it out. Like fuck. He's like, Roman, stop going for leg locks. Like, how frustrating is it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not shitting on. Of course, it's all endeared love to my guy Nixick there, but you know what I'm saying? Like, holy crap, he must have grayed hair and lost years like trying to corner these fucking guys. Or as Eric says, he's like, whenever something's going on at the gym, he'll just be, someone's complaining or someone will be like, oh, can you believe these guys are doing? He's like, I can barely get these guys to shit in the toilet. That's what he says. Like that's always been the saying. Like, I have a hard enough time trying to get these guys to shit in the fucking toilet. Okay, that's couldn't be more true. And again, you're gonna picture guys like Kutalaba and Dolidze, right? When you hear that.
yeah, for sure.
Umar C defeats Dawoon Jung. So again, this is just a bad bet. And again, I was owning up to these bad bets, right? This is one of the many I was owning up to this card. I took a live shot, which was stupid because like it wasn't as good of a number that I would have gotten pre-flop. But again, I'm not confident in Da Woon Jung. I didn't want anything to do with this fight, right? But they put 1,700 prelims on this card, Feno. And you get bored, and they just tested my degeneracy, right?
You need to make it exciting, yeah, some way, yeah.
And I see even though I picked C, I was like, again, like my reverse racism, where I'm like, oh, everybody overcompensates the round one finishers, A.
Oh, then you're right. This guy had like 25 fights. What the fuck?
Yeah, and like, and I'm like, oh, he's unproven, kind of past the first round for the most part. And say what you will about Da Woon Jung, like usually he like, you know, he'll get in a staring contest and shit, like we talked about with the he's a staring contest master now. But like before, when he would lose, generally it's like he would get taken out of there early, and then afterwards, you know, it'd become a problem. You know, and or at least he'd be like hanging around and doing something, and he didn't do shit. I was like, ooh, I thought he won the first round, and that's kind of the live betting thing where you look for you already got the overhyped narrative. You got the Asian. Put it this way, you got an Asian guy versus a black guy. Like, it doesn't matter how good the Asian guy is. He's going to be, like, plus. I was actually kind of weird, though, by the way. We actually saw the Contender Series fight. We had that small Asian dude against the giant black dude in the middleweight a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know how, but the Asian guy opened, and I'm usually Mr. Reverse Racism over here, right? Contrarian. But I'm like, dude, how did the Asian guy open and stay as the favorite? Like, everybody just, like, dude, everybody's racist when it comes to those matchups, right? Like...
Not this time, yeah.
No, like not this time. And then, so I kind of have that in my head. So I think I overcompensated Feno, and I'm like, because I low key thought Da Woon Jung won round one, and the majority of the cards that I respect said so that he either won or could have won it, right?
Yeah, I think he hurt C pretty bad after the jumping knee, and it was like the biggest thing in the round, and then he decided to do nothing at all again because he did that same shit against Olberg. I remember watching that Olberg fight live,
so
and it was like, oh, here comes the comeback by Da Woon Jung. Olberg looks done. He looks done. Here comes the comeback.
No.
He's not doing anything, right?
Yeah, because he was turning into a low key, I'm gonna grapple and submit you guy. So when he fought like Devin Clark, I was like, oh, he's going to get him, right? Because I've had that read for Devin Clark before. And then he almost got Devin Clark. Like, the first half of the fight looked exactly how I predicted it, and then he fell off. But it was just enough for me to still believe, right? So I was like, oh, maybe he can survive against Olberg, right? And I don't even know if I bet or picked him, but I remember playing round 3 Jung because I'm like, if he's going to win, Feno, to your point, he's going to come back. It was going to look like those conditions, right? And I'm like, oh, it's happening. And then, of course, and just to add insult to injury, not only does it not happen, but Olberg is the one that gets the third round finish.
And he gets a finish, yeah.
And it was like one of the rare times where like the refs go back to, I think it was like Herb Dean, where they go back to adjudicate it and like correct their call, which they never fucking do. I'm like, of course. But yeah, so like I should have stayed away, like my initial thoughts, but I was just bored, I guess, Feno. And I was like, ooh, live line, I'm bound to hit a live. Feno, I probably only live bet, believe it or not, officially, on the record, only like 5 times. And I'm 0 for 5. And I'm not crying about that, by the way. Like, I deserve it. I only had maybe one good live bet, which was, I think it was good, because he was up 29-28, like I predicted he could be. Cannonier versus Imavov. But of course, we know how that fight ended.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that. We talked about that, yeah.
Yeah, of course. So I don't want to get back in. But yeah, so anyway, so that was stupid of me. Ludovic Klein defeated Roosevelt Roberts. None of us thought he looked as big of a favorite, especially because Roberts was coming in short notice, I think, right?
Oh, yeah, Klein was supposed to fight someone else, I remember.
But all the southpaws except Saint Denis won tonight, so Klein was still able to win. I didn't have him in my parlay because he was too high. But he did come through, I guess. But yeah, I wasn't too impressed there.
No, it was kind of meh. It looked like it would have gone the other way another day. It came down to like a very few, like somewhat big moments. And even then you can argue that Roberts won 1 and 3, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't have been like terribly mad. That wouldn't have been like the craziest thing. Probably. Taylor Lapilus defeated Vince Morales. This was pretty easy to see coming. This was another fight, like, where I did see the value. This was like the second most value on the card, which ended up being the first because, of course, I thought the first most value was Anderson Brito. And even people who don't bet and aren't even like Gomi haters were like, how is Brito not minus 500? Like, that's what everybody was saying, right? And, to be honest, maybe you could have said that about Lapalus, though he did start to look like he was visibly tiring, showing some bad body language in the third, but then he came back and would like combo up fucking Morales. So I'm like, okay, maybe he's not tired, but, I feel like he did what I expected. I didn't expect him to get a finish, so that didn't surprise me. What about you, Fenyo?
This was as predicted. It was always a very bad matchup for Morales, especially after I saw the Southpaw report. He was like, "Oh yeah, this guy's getting fucked."
You could see how lost he was, though, right? You could kind of see like that he was really lost for ideas, right?
Yeah. To his credit, he went hard the third round.
Yeah.
And that's how you beat a guy like Lapidus that really likes the fight to be super clean and that. But I think, and this is a gamble that fighters never take, to be honest. But if Morales actually really wanted to have the best bet at winning this fight, he should have gone like crazy like that from the first minute.
Oh yeah.
Like, and obviously, like fighters never do that because they think, oh, I'm too technical to do that and that kind of shit. But sometimes it's like the best thing you can do, right?
And that's the crazy part is, like, if you look at his success against that he did have against Southpaws in the fights, it was the moments where he's like, fuck this, I'm just going to go forward and launch his right hand.
He just gets fed up and he finally gets to the pocket where he actually can put his combinations together. Yeah. And we saw that because he landed a pretty good uppercut in that third round.
But he needs to get beat up into it because even, I couldn't fit everything in, but even in his lone win on the regionals against the Southpaw, which was Ishihara, like, Ishihara was piecing him up the whole fight. It was like he essentially just clubs himself with him at the very end. He was essentially getting pieced up the whole round and a half prior.
So. Yeah, and especially because Morales is like a club and soft guy, right? So you want to make it ugly to at least get into some kind of a scramble.
Yes.
Because he's not that good of a wrestler, right? So he was not going to take down Lapidus for like shooting from range.
Yeah. Yep. And let's he did his job. He hit the leg of the parlay, but the parlay didn't hit, so whatever. Speaking of club and sub, how about butt and smut? I don't know. Aileen Perez defeated Daria Zalesniakova. This one I felt bad because I was like, oh no, I had some friends that were like big on Zalesniakova, and part of me didn't want to play it because I want to be responsible. But also, like, I legitimately don't even want to jinx my friends at this point, Fenyo. But like then Aileen Perez comes on, looks death on the scale, and I'm like, why are they tempting me like this, bro? Why are they tempting me like this? We always see the women's underdog hit, right? And then I did the math of like, I literally sit here, I stay up all night. By the way, Fenyo can attest for this. Fenyo, did I not like message you like 2 to 3 hours before the event going, oh, I still haven't slept. I'm going to go try to sleep for a little bit. I've been up all night working and posting and logging these pics. Did I not message you doing that? So I stay up all night, and I'm not the only one because I even had like, shout out, even like really cool people, MMA gambling Twitter, like people who could be mad at me because I'm throwing shade at people who sell picks, but people who sell picks actually message me, Fenyo, for what it's worth, and we're like, bro, I just want to let you know, like, this means a lot, by the way. They were like, somebody who did do that, so like, I know what it's like to put picks out there that you sell and then they bomb, and you fucking stay up all night. You stay up all night sweating about this stuff. I was listening to a podcaster who didn't even say this to me, and he doesn't even sell picks. He does it for free like me on a really respectable podcast. He was talking about how he's been in this space forever, and he was talking about how he's like, dude, this stuff keeps me at night, making sure I'm putting out good content for you guys. Like, I take this personally. I take it real, And Fenyo can attest to this too, He fucking listens to me more than he should. He really should just like not respond to my DMs. But like Fenyo, you can even attest, right? Like you know how much I put in, how much I care. I don't know how I come off, but you know how much care and how much work I put, into this week and week, right? So, I don't know what I was trying to say there, but like, yeah, basically, I stayed up and I was calculating, Fenyo, basically like, okay, I'm at I'm around my average, like 7.45 units. Total exposure, and I'm like, what happens if I just put another half unit out on Daria? It'll get me 2 units if she wins, but what happens if she loses? So my nuts ass Fenyo, I'll sit there, I'll calculate. okay, this is a realistic bet. Let's say I feel great about Brito, but God forbid Brito loses, right? And then I hit this and this and that. Well, if that loses, I don't think this half a unit is going to save me and make or break my day anyways, right? And I was doing all these different combinations, and there was only one combination I came up with where it would have made or break a winning night, but it would have been a winning night by that very half unit, which wouldn't have been much of a winning night, you know? So in other words, even in the one scenario where it could have cost it, I don't know how bad I would have felt, especially with all the losing I've already been doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in other words, I was like, okay, so it makes sense from a mathematical bankroll perspective, right? And then I look at it too, like I know I'm losing on everything I was saying on Feno on the last podcast, so it feels silly to say, oh, this is what I'm the worst at. Like, oh, really, Dan? That's what you're the worst at? Like, you suck at everything, right? But like, if we're splitting hairs, Feno, the worst at is one of these you might be able to relate to too, as prediction as an analyst, right? One of these is, of course, the first bet of the night. You know, my vaunted first bet of the night always fucking fails, right? And again, my biggest bet of the night was this parlay, right? And my first bet of the night was going to be Lapalus, and I'm like, holy fuck, no, I can't do my parlay, Feno, right? So I had to put I was the villain. I had to put an innocent bystander in the way, like taking a hostage, right? So I took Zeleniakova. I'm like, no, you're going down. You go down for us. Like, you know, like we're running from the zombies, and I look back, I'm like, Zeleniakova's expendable, and I kick out one of her knees, you know, so that she falls. And then she's like, oh, wait. And the zombies are eating. I'm like, keep running, guys, keep running. And I'm like, keeping my blood, you know. And then I feel like an asshole at the end of the movie because I lost anyways. I'm like, oh, shit. I was like Paul Reiser from Aliens, and I still lost. But yeah, so like, sorry, I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, I fucking, so I was like, yeah, let me just put that there. And that was my reasoning for that, folks. It wasn't because I'm like, oh, yeah. Fucking Zeleniakova shows to do this move, and Alien Perez is really weak to that, guys. Like, it wasn't anything like that, folks, but that was my thinking, if that makes sense.
Exactly like that, yeah.
No one wants to be, if the world ends, like, Dan, I don't care how many weapons you have at your house, I am not teaming up with you for the zombie apocalypse. I'm gonna wash my fucking kneecaps.
You just outed yourself as the guy that is going to throw you the dogs.
You know, it's like, all right, guys, you guys ready to move? Yeah. Hey, Timmy, come here. What's up? How's that broken leg you were complaining about? What broken leg, Dan? This one. Run, guys, run. Sorry, terrible. Oh man. All right, let's finish the rest of these. Victor Altamirano defeated Daniel Barres. Right? Or what Daniel Barres defeated Victor Altamirano. How'd it go?
In reality, Altamirano won, according to the French judges.
Okay, yes.
Barres won,
right.
yeah.
So I went back.
No, it was close. No, to be honest,
Yeah.
it wasn't that close. Yeah, it wasn't that close, to be honest. It was like Altamirano got like knocked down. He wasn't hurt at all, and
Right.
that stalled round for Barres at the end of the second. And then the third round, Altamirano bring the heat to him, beat his ass kind of. Barres has a tremendous knockdown at the beginning of the first round, but then Altamirano got back into the fight, so I think the 10-9 for the first is fair.
Yeah. I will say round two, and I scored it the same way as you did, by the way. I thought Altamirano was going to get it. But I will say, again, back to the body work, not just the late optics of the knockdown in round two, which I agree, I don't think it hurt Victor Altamirano, right? But here's what I think did hurt Altamirano before that. There was 2 good shots to the body in that last minute before the knockdown as well that helped him gain some momentum. And I saw him actually draw some small reactions out of Victor Altamirano, who you can tell because he has that really like annoying confidence. Where like when you're hurting him, he's not acting hurt. You're like, fucking at least act hurt, bro. I know that hurt. Like, I'm fine. He's the guy you got the heel hook. And it's like you hear pop. You're like, dude, just tap. This is practice. No, I'm fine. Like
they're doing this,
yeah,
but
like,
the heel's popping. Yeah.
Like it's fucking slow roll round, bro. This isn't the like you know what I'm saying? Like he feels like he's that annoying dude. But so that's why like I was like, ooh, I think he actually got reactions out of there. But to my point again, like I think I'm so used to judges not caring about that shit or caring to grade it heavily. I was like, that's probably Altamirano round, you know, and but
when you said that, I remember that one of my first like few months like rolling in a big gym here in Chile, And I was rolling with this guy that was bigger than me, and he had me in, I don't remember what kind of submission attempt. I think maybe it was like an arm triangle, and we were there like a minute, and he goes like, "Dude, just stop! You cannot go. You cannot get out of here." And all I said was no. And we sat there like for extra like
That's
2 minutes.
hilarious. That's hilarious.
And he didn't never tap me. Like it
That's
wasn't
funny.
in. I was
That's
not
funny.
going to tap you.
No, that's legit funny. You know, the fucked up part is usually I won't even get in that confrontation. What I'll do is I'm the nice guy. I will like kind of crank it and look at them and assume they're gonna know. You know, like I used to this back in my point karate days too.
Yeah,
And
just let it go. Yeah.
it was bad because like again I was. This is probably where my body shot disrespect comes in. Nobody respected the body shots either in like my point karate days. So when we were actually sparring and there wasn't a ref to break you up and give you a point for it, forget the fact that you didn't want to hurt them because you were just practicing and sparring, but also in the fact that even in point competition where it's not like you're trying to hurt the person, like you got to respect you just got hit. The ref breaks it up right there, right? And I would always hate it because people would always be aggressive, and I'd be nice and kind of like rolling, countering, and I would do the front teeps. That's why I love the McGregor teeps of the body because that's always been my move even back then, and no one would respect that shit. And so I just learned like eventually in MMA and stuff or kickboxing you really have to hit people obviously, but but I mean it's that same concept. But I still have it really bad with grappling, Feno, to where I'll be like, oh, you see that I got you, and I'll be like, okay. Dan, you know, something my therapist says, Dan, not everything is personal, even though all this timing is fucked up. Not everything is personal. So it's funny, every time like all this shit keeps happening, Fenu, I'm just going, it's not personal. It's not personal. Dog's only throwing up right before I gotta go online, right where I gotta work out, right in the same spot. Not personal. You know. So I'm doing like I'm doing that mantra. So when someone's not tapping, I do the same thing. I'm like, Dan, it's not personal. Maybe they're just too stupid, right? Like seriously, maybe they don't realize that they're in danger, right? Because that's what it is half the time, right? They don't even.
Yeah.
It's not they're being a dick.
Yeah, especially
realize,
with
right?
with like limbs.
Yes. So what I'll do is I'll give it a tug. Did you catch it? Okay, you didn't. And I'm so like I barely even go for submissions, by the way. First of all, that's why I find funny when people like it's their UFC. I'm like, bro, have you noticed I've gone for like I average 1 point. I don't even know if I probably average 0.9 submissions every 5 minutes if you had me into the UFC stats, Feno. Like, I have such a low submission average. I love grappling, flowing, and all this shit, right? And so, but what I hate about it the most is when you let go. The worst part about it is when you try to, like, not take it personal, avoid the confrontation, let them go. They
take the opportunity to sweep you.
Yeah, or if there's a submission, they're gonna go, oh, I gotta get it back. So now they're going hard at you. So now you're in a hard roll, and you don't even want to even let them get even slightly close. Even though I'm like confident with my defense, and I'll let people catch things sometimes to be like not like fully tap me. And if they do, good for them. Like I'll tap. I don't have an issue. I'm just slow rolling. Like I tapped to a girl the other day and on an open mat. You know, like it was not a big deal. Like she got me into something. Like I wasn't going hard. The person was like, if I'm being honest, like she was clearly going hard, you know, she was clearly trying where I wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, and we were talking before and after, making conversation, getting to know each other. She was like cool, or whatever. So I didn't give a shit, you know. And girls are usually having to deal with the opposite, where whenever they tap a guy, it's fucking the guy's getting all egotistical and shit. So I get where they're coming from, so I don't take it personal. But the worst part is though, they'll come at you and you don't want to even let them get a catch because they're gonna hook it. Meaning they're not even gonna give you that respect that I gave. They're gonna be because they're so excited to get something, they'll hurt you. Hence, white belts hurting you. But anyways, that bullshit. But yeah, Altamirano won, I guess. But good for him. He's got an interesting story, by the way. So I hate being a dick when I describe him as like a really annoying. I described him as an annoying nerd who probably got beat up a lot growing up, and then I put in parentheses, but still somehow not beat up enough. It makes you sound like a real thing. Like, wow, Dan, you're advocating for two fighters, one to get molested and the other to get abused as children. Is that what you're... Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. It's Dark Dan over here. Jacqueline Cavalcante, at least it was the males. Jacqueline Cavalcante defeated a Nora Cornhole. Outside of the egregious cage grab, because again, refs just don't want to take any points away now. Again, it was like that. It was like Tricoli versus Shitmadov, Sharabullet, where it was like, it didn't we already know who's probably going to win the fight, but like it just feels extra bad when you could tell a fighter is tired
Yeah.
and they don't have enough energy for a takedown, and you're like, oh shit, they actually have enough energy to sell out for a takedown. Oh shit, they're about to actually get it, and then they're denied, and you're like, oh, that was and that's their win condition. You're like, or
Yeah.
so they said on paper. I'm not saying it was a game over deal. Obviously, it's cornhole, but yeah, I don't have anything to say about this fight other than that, Fenyo.
Uh, I thought it was weird. Apparently these girls fought before,
Yeah.
so and I guess Cavalcanti outstruck Cornell. Cornell always looked like a pretty good striker to me. I mean, she's the girl with the like Muay Thai background and shit.
Right,
But
yeah.
they were so insistent on her grappling here, and I feel like she looked off after that first takedown. I think
Yeah.
she had like an adrenaline dump, something, because she looked pretty bad. I'm not saying that Cavalcanti was not going to win if they strike for 3 rounds. I'm just saying that Cornell looked weird for the rest of the fight.
Yep.
And the other thing is that Cornell should have go for more knees in the clinch because those were pretty effective and she was not using them. Cavalcanti, to her part, she looked pretty good. She's like becoming someone in this division that is pretty desolate at the moment, so that's something to look out for.
Yep. I will say, for what it's worth, my alternative card format aged well here again because not only did I put the women's and the light heavyweight fights in the beginning, which would have made sense, but say what you will about this fight, Nora Cornhole, I think she got like excited because the crowd was like waiting to exhale because for whatever reason they opened the card with a fight that didn't have a French fighter in either side of it. One of the few fights. That's what they opened it. It's like why?
People were cheering for Oki, but it's not the same.
Yeah. But like, it's like why not? You know what I'm saying? Like you would have gotten that pop. You know, and again, you know, I know Oki and Duncan was a finish, and you can argue, oh, that's how we should kick off the card, but that's how you should kick off the main card. The curtain jerker, it's called a curtain jerker for a reason. It's not a positive name, right? Like Joe Silva didn't bury the low level heavyweights for years there for a reason, right? You know, there was a reason for this shit, folks, right? Not just because we're hipsters. But yeah, Chris Duncan defeated Oki. I like Duncan. I like Scottish people. I like the accent. So you know, I'm okay with being wrong there. I did pick Oki. I don't have anything to say about that fight. Do you have anything to say about that one, Fenya?
Guillotine was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Oki's defense was not very good, to be honest.
You know what was funny with the guillotine? It was so weird optics, right? Because it was both a guy going not just out, but out hard. And not just out hard, but out hard in a choke that wasn't. It was a tight choke. Obviously, these guillotines they can come on real tight and fast, folks. By the way, I get it, but optically, it's weird because you don't see it that fast necessarily. Especially in conjunction, it only exacerbated it by Duncan not realizing and not being confident in his own choke, and then immediately opting to punch, and then immediately being just as surprised as us. So it just made it look weirder than it was. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Guillotines are weird because sometimes you feel slowly you're like running out of air and shit, and other times it's like I'm fine. Oh, okay, this shit sucks and you down.
Yeah, and usually that's more. And the funny thing is, usually that's more of a trach choke. You know, when you're using that wrist bone and you're digging like, we used to have Neil torture us, man. We'd work those on each other to where like his goal was like it's a smoothie weekend, guys. You know we're working, and he would work us in the BCG grappling team practices on those fucking guillotines on trach chokes. And he said that because we all ended up feeling like we had sore throats for the next 3 days.
Oh, that sucks so much.
Yeah, it was old school stupid training. That's why my knees were torn up because we were one of the few doing leg locks pre Danaher Death Squad before those guys made it cool again. But yeah, so you know, yeah, real cool, Dan. You get to brag about how injured and fucked up you are. Congratulations, dude. But I bring up the guillotine to say, like, again, back to like, I see a bunch of shit happen all the time. Not just for people. I'm making things up. I'm playing the comparison game. Like, no, on the very same card, like. You know, we've talked about scores not being consistent, right? Like, even the guillotines. You look at, like, what Brito got on Gomes. Like, the funny part of me was going, I knew he didn't have enough time to finish it, Feno, but I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, maybe he should just do the dirty thing and hold, if I was Brito, and hold on to it for like a second or two, and maybe he can get like the Chris Duncan stoppage, right? Like we saw earlier in the card.
Yeah.
And it was a deep guillotine, and of course, Gomes is fine or whatever, and I'm like, and he held on to it for long and still couldn't get it. I'm like, God damn it. I'm like, why can't I get... Like, this is why I don't, like, wish for the fluke stuff, folks, because, like, I can't even get the shit that's supposed to happen to fucking happen, much less any of this crazy shit to ever, like... fall in my favor. But anyways, that was the card. James Kendrick says Dixon Cornhole. Is that her name? No, it's Nora. Dixon Cornhole. Oh, God damn it. I'm Mo from The Simpsons. You got me. I'm bisping. You're bisping me. Oh, no. Dixon Cornhole. Oh, no. Somebody's going to clip that. Clip it. Get it. Clip it just as long as you hit the like button, please. Thank you guys for joining us. This is... fun. Thank you for members. I actually had fun talking about the card and came around. You guys fucking cheered me up, so thank you. Believe it or not, I just feel bad for those of you who, whether it was the beginning of this show or many shows before, I've tired you out, which I understand, by the way. I'm not for everybody. I just want to apologize for that. To you guys, to Feno as well. Dude, this guy puts up... You guys think I'm annoying? Did you guys know how much Feno has to put up with me? Like, we do a show together, man. Like, you know how fucking annoying that is? Like... So thank you guys. I don't deserve it. I apologize. I really am trying. It's just without even getting into the personal stuff, which I won't. It's just kind of hard to build momentum. I am just trying to focus on my health. I am trying to take a lot of your guys' advice, who are sending me good advice that are coming from good places, like to treat yourself and to worry about yourself and health first and focus on what you've done and what you're gonna do and the good things that you are. These are all great advice, folks, and I am trying my best here. I'm putting more work than the average Joe. I can promise you that. But that doesn't mean I'm not coming up short. That doesn't mean I'm not accountable and apologetic for that. So, thank you, Feno. Thank you, everybody. Feno, anything to say to that, or to be awkward and talk to that, but anything to say to the audience and close out here before we go?
No, I mean, I think I speak for everyone that we all support you, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, who cares about the bad luck, the bad bets? It's whatever, right? We're not here for that. I mean, it sucks, but
it's not what you want to be known for, but
yeah, I mean, I don't think that you're known for that, but
it doesn't feel like that. But you're right. You are right, though. I don't think so. I don't think I should be. But kind of like I said in one of my many tweets earlier, it's even though it's such a small portion of my work, or really just me as a whole, right? Like, oh, well, you work in gambling. Like, yes, I do. Like, maybe take that into account before, shitting on me, I guess. But yeah, like realize that, like, oh, why do you gamble, bro? Why are you online? You're so unhealthy. You're online all the time and you're gambling. Like, my job is working in gambling and being online. I don't know how much you guys want me to avoid it. I don't know if you guys have ever been in that position, where you have that job and have had to be under the public scrutiny, but it's not fun. It's not all it's cracked up to be. But I'm doing my best, folks. Thank you guys. Thank you, Feno. Melissa Dixon did fight Nora. Okay. Well, you got me to say a great name anyways, James, and I love you, James. James Kendrick is another real one. When I was saying none of my homies like Gomes, I was picturing like me, James Kendrick, Rio, Feno, and like on like some stoop like for a rap album. There's like a spray painted of a Phantom Punch Breakdowns logo in the background behind us.
Yeah.
And it just says none of my homies like Gomes.
And with the parental advisory.
Yes. Yeah. None of my. Maybe it's even more true now because now maybe he's become a deserved enemy of the podcast, Feno. What do you think? Even though it's not his fault, the judges gave it to him. He's fighting his ass off out there.
He also decided to be like a bit better now, so he might win more fights now. So
fuck, dude.
So even more fun.
And then prove all the people saying all right that they're saying I told you he was more athletic. Fucking stupid analysts. It's athleticism, bro. Pigmentation.
Bro.
Fucking. I got a really athletic shirt on, by the way, apparently, then. It's a real athletic shirt. Sorry, on that note, before we start delving into the race science, which is, arguably most other breakdown shows, let's not make this show that. Let's get the fuck out of here. This already went too long. But, hey, it's going to be free. It'll give you something to listen to on Sunday. And hopefully you got some laughs. And there was some good analysis and talking points. So follow Feno, follow his full preview. He's going to try to have it out. I don't want to put the pressure on him, but just know.
No. I'm coming out on Monday. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it.
Just know he's going to do it. It's going to be better than anything I can do and shorter than anything I can do. So if I'm too long and too much Dan Tom, A, you're not wrong. B, I don't blame you. C, at Feno X Guy, he's your solution. Please go follow him. Support all the other good people that we shout out at this show. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much. And always protect your neck.